Hi, this is Scott Sustacek, your host for CEO to CEO, the podcast from the CEO Roundtable. CEO Roundtable is a peer-to-peer organization that brings business leaders together to share wisdom, experience, and insights from the trenches. Today's episode is sponsored by IntroWorks, launching powerful B2B brands for more than 30 years. Learn more about them at intro.works. Welcome to this episode of CEO to CEO, and I want to welcome my guest today, Andrew Fernholz, CEO of Ambient Consulting. Welcome.
Thank you, Scott.
Good to have you here.
Pleasure to be here.
We're going to talk about something that is ubiquitous right now, AI. It's everywhere. It's in everything. It's driving the stock market. It's in everything that we do. It's in technology that we use. The iPhone 16 just came out with a bunch of new AI features. Pretty important time. And obviously a lot of things happening around AI. What I also see, though, is that companies and small, mid-sized companies don't exactly know where to start. And Andrew, that's why we've got you here today to really help us think about this and for our audience to start thinking about how they navigate this and how they build this into their strategy of growth for their businesses. I want to just talk a little bit about you, Andrew, and your background, and then I'm going to have you talk about Ambient and where you're taking this company. So,
sounds good, Scott.
After a career on Wall Street in investment banking, helping companies raise money, you said, hey, I think I'd like to try this. So that spawned a 25-year run in IT, where you built businesses from the ground up in the IT space. And again, that landed you here at Ambient to I think, sounds like do a lot of the same things. So I'm going to turn it over to you and just tell us a little bit about what you've got going on here at Ambient.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. So, Scott, been with Ambient now since August 28th of last year, so a little over a year now.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a wild ride for a year. So coming to and the proposition of Ambient Consulting was more than just an opportunity to take a mid-size consulting company to the next level. It also had quite a bit of innovation labs going on, a lot of different company spin-offs that had been created. Andy Grossman, founder of Ambient, has been a serial entrepreneur, which leads really good to my background, taking ideas and concepts and monetizing them and obviously bring them to market. And so the idea of both an opportunity to serve companies in my area of expertise, but also an opportunity to really explore and build new technology, specifically in AI. Yeah. And that's been an interesting ride. You know, you mentioned AI is here. It's all around us. It's all over the news. The reality is AI has been around since the 80s. Actually, theoretically, since the 60s. Back in the 80s, they were talking about taking automating the code cards that you put into the computers back in the day. And so it's been a concept that's been out there. It's been something people have been talking about. But I think now that we've seen it in the hands of your average person, the average person can go out and get a subscription to AI, whether it's ChatGPT or Clio, and do some really crazy things, some really cool things.
Well, yeah. So, you know, it's been around with us for a long time, but it feels like now that technology has become democratized, that it is available to everyone. And is that because of the speed of the chips from all these companies that are driving this, NVIDIA, Taiwan Semiconductor, that make it so much easier for people to use and to put into our iPhones and all of the technology we have in our homes?
Yeah. I think, the accessibility and democratization of AI has been, in the last 3 or 4 years, is obviously why it's been so prevalent in the news. But the reality is that what we have available to the general public is, in fact, some rudimentary AI engines, right? ChatGPT is continuously coming out with new technology and new ways of doing things, but most of that technology has already been around. And so now we're getting it to the access where the average person can get it on their phone, but it's also how you use it.
Right.
And the guardrails that a lot of organizations look at. I think the other thing we're seeing is that even the largest organizations, the enterprise-sized companies, the Fortune 50, while they have a better grasp or at least claim they have a roadmap, it's still very much experimental for them. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times what we'll see is that original strategy will pivot quite dramatically. We're seeing a lot of times right now with the text-to-video option within AI, really opening up some doors. Mm-hmm. Some of the products that we were looking at developing back last year have now pivoted because of the new technology. And so sometimes it's like, well, do I wait for everything to come out and for all the bugs to be worked out, or do I dive headfirst in and see what we can do about experimenting and really working and automating and making our lives better with AI?
Well, and I think for companies, that question is going to continue for the foreseeable future because technology is just going to keep accelerating and changing.
It is.
And so you're going to jump in. What you're jumping into is already dated. Like it's the next generation of chips that have come out that have moved the ball. So.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the medical industry. I mean, we're seeing a convergence of AI and nanotechnology, biotech, a lot of things that have already been built or have already been experimented with or have already been proven are now kind of coming into mainstream. And so we're seeing that convergence happening a lot of times with a lot of guidance and guardrails, but more specifically, really changing the way the technology within med devices work. Mm-hmm. And so instead of having a doctor on call reading a pacemaker readout, we're now seeing AI being used to almost, in a lot of times, predict what's going on with the human body, but also looking at how to treat that human body. Mm-hmm. You know, they're looking at AI into nanotechnology, which means the nanobots that they put in the body will not only be able to identify the issue, but also make a recommendation on how to treat that patient.
Yeah, and it's only going to keep evolving, right?
Yeah.
So that brings us to really one of the main topics we wanted to talk about is especially for small to mid-sized, middle-market companies that look at AI and just might be overwhelmed and say, where do I start? Gosh, we're using some chat GPT in some things, but that's really just an entry point. Mm-hmm. Because there are so many ways that companies can be taking advantage of this and not just to improve productivity, but ultimately to drive their strategies and how they differentiate in the market. And so I know that you have got some experience with that and things that you've done here at Ambient and obviously things that you're looking at to continue to do. Would you share that with our audience?
Yeah. So as you mentioned before, it's the mediums and the small businesses out there don't have the investment dollars that a lot of larger companies do, and a lot of times people look at AI and the R&D work that needs to go into place as a huge expense. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times you look at the office of the CEO, and they'll be asking, well, if I'm going to spend $1 million to automate a portion of HR, what's my ROI? Right. And I think in subsequent podcasts and webinars we've talked about. The reality is putting the ROI aside for a moment. Okay, put aside what you're going to gain from it. Really focus on how can I improve my business and how can I improve my employees. Mm-hmm. And so really looking at, at first, we walk into some medium-sized companies, they'll ask us a lot of questions about, okay, what technology, what AI version should I be using? And get really stuck on the technical aspect of AI.
Right.
And contrary to a lot of people's opinions, we tell them put the technology side as well for a moment. Let's really look at what are the business cases? What are the things that, the simple question we ask some companies is, what does your team like the least about their job? So for a sales organization, and obviously we have a sales organization, Ambient, I already knew right away what most of my salespeople really liked least. And it wasn't cashing checks, and it definitely wasn't closing deals. It was the documentation.
I was going to say admin, right?
Yes,
Anything
yes.
admin.
That pesky CRM that
Right.
the sales teams, their Bible, but they don't always use it as such. And so one of the things we looked at first internally was, okay, how can we automate or really take the documentation to a different level but also analyze that documentation, meaning that, it's one thing to put notes into a system or create a database full of information. It's another thing, how do you draw it?
Right.
How do you analyze it? Right? We talk a lot about with medium and small and large companies as well is what are your data sets? Because a lot of times what we first look at when we generate, an automated system with AI, or we look at, maybe it's coding. Everybody's talking about, Gartner put it out there, Accenture put it out there as, in the next 3 years, 70% of all code is going to get written by AI.
Mm-hmm.
And going across to all the organizations that we've worked with and talking with a lot of the experts that we engage with from our senior advisory panel, these guys will tell you that it will make the developer's job better, but it will not eliminate the job of the coder and the developer.
Right.
And so it really will enrich them. And so when we look at organizations and business cases, it's back to how can we make people's lives better first and foremost. Then it's also looking at how can we make our business relationships better. What would be of service to our customers? Mm-hmm. We started looking at a lot of these websites that came out over the last 10 years and the chatbot, the whole chatbot thing, right? I was on with a cable provider up kind of doing some work on one of our homes, and my first interface was with chatbot.
Oh, interesting.
And so I'm here telling the chatbot what my problem is.
Right.
My cable doesn't work. Well, have you tried this and have you tried that?
Right.
Now that cut down the call frequency into the call centers, mm-hmm. right? Because if you can get your problem triaged by a chatbot, fantastic.
Right.
But I had zero confidence in that chatbot's ability to actually solve my problem. It could regurgitate a whole bunch of issues, but it wasn't really solving my issue.
Right.
And the lack of personal interface. It was just this text screen, right?
Sure.
Now, with modern technology, or at least with what's come out with AI recently, we can actually change all of that to an actual persona, an individual.
Mm-hmm.
Who's your favorite actor, Scott?
Russell Crowe.
Okay. So you're contacting, say, one of the cable providers, and Russell Crowe pops up in his likeness, in everything that Russell Crowe does. Maybe he's dressed like Gladiator or
right.
one of his roles, right? And he's on there and he's talking to you as if you are a real person.
Right.
And as if he is a real person. And that customer satisfaction, at least, you know what, it may be aggravating listening to elevator music, but hey, I got to really engage with
right.
Russell Crowe.
Right.
And so has that improved the business relationship or the customer service relationship with your clients? And so that's where we really look at when we come into organizations is, first and foremost, what kind of governance do you need to put in place,
mm-hmm.
right? You can't just tell everybody, hey, you all got Copilot loaded on your laptop. Have fun.
Right. And then what?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Then we're diving into personal information. We're doing database searches, and then before you know it, we've got a data breach. And so first and foremost, we've really got to tell organizations, hey, put up some guidelines. What are the parameters? What's the policy internally? What are the things that employees can't do
mm-hmm.
without AI? And more importantly, is if once they have AI, what are the guidelines and governances for how they use AI
mm-hmm.
in their everyday work? It's a lot easier when you take, say, a coding group or a development group or a database, and it's isolated and nobody else is interfering with it. You can start running AI sets with that database. Well, the guardrails are there already because that information can't leave that database. They can't go anywhere else, and it's right there in front of you. Now, on the flip side of it, when you turn it over to a sales guy, a Copilot, a lot of things can happen if we don't have certain guidelines in place.
Sure.
So then once we have those guidelines in place, then it's start earmarking, okay, what are the things that AI can make my job better?
Mm-hmm.
Or more importantly, what's going to help enhance my relationship with my clients, their services, whether it's, whether in the hospitality industry or whether in the IT consulting industry. It's that interface.
Yeah.
And working with those guys. So that to me is really kind of the first step in identifying how we can apply AI or automation to our lives within organizations.
It seems like when and this was probably a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, but as AI started to gain more and more relevance in society, what you heard right away was the fear-mongering of, well, this is going to take all these jobs away. But I think, if you follow the path of technology, what you see is when technology gets introduced, it doesn't necessarily take away jobs. It changes the job, and it changes the value add that the person brings to the job. And using AI as a tool that, and I'm starting to see more and more of the conversation move in that direction, and I think that's what I'm hearing you say as well.
100%. I mean, it's they were talking about AI replacing developers back in the 80s. Okay,
right.
So if it hasn't happened since the 80s, is it going to happen now? I truly do believe that. I think there are some situations where there will be job eliminations because they are the rudimentary engagements. But again, back to that point, that job hasn't really been eliminated, it's been changed.
Right.
And so instead of for example, in the human resources area, right? If you're out there looking for talent and you're calling hundreds and hundreds of people to see if they're interested in coming to work for your snowmobile company. Well, great. That's the traditional way of going. You put an ad in the paper, you put an ad online, you do the LinkedIn process, and then you start, in a lot of ways, you start calling these people. And will that change? No, I think it'll be enhanced by systematic outreaches using AI to those individuals to baseline them. But it's going to change that. Instead of them coming in and calling a whole bunch of people, they're going to have a subset of candidates that they can reach out to and start having a personal connection with, which I still don't think today that AI is going to replace that personal touch in a lot of cases.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's just, for us, where society is today, just a bridge too far.
Yeah.
But certainly moving in that direction.
Exactly. I mean, we've been dealing with a talent shortage in the tech industry for years.
Yeah.
We're seeing that in the medical profession. The pandemic that's coming down with people, just not enough doctors and nurses to provide care, aging population, and all that comes into play. Then you have the airline industry. I mean, we talked about the pilots, shortage of pilots. Well, there's a shortage of a lot of personnel within the airline industry. And so how can we improve their lives and improve their experience so that they stay on? A lot of times you'll find companies will say, you know what, I had this employee, it's a great employee, they've been in here for a year and a half, but they got bored or they got sucked into all the administrative work that really bogged down their job and really wasn't, that 5% of their job is what they enjoyed. What we're talking about right now, Scott, is shoring up that 95% and actually making that job not only satisfactory, but engaging. And people leave. They leave for a lot of reasons, but they're not going to leave because they're not engaged.
Right.
And engaged employees are happy employees and employees that stay. And so when we're talking about a tech shortage, we're talking about talent shortage in the industry, making their lives better by improving their work, will in fact improve turnover and improve retention.
Yeah. Let's shift gears just a little bit, Andrew, and talk about strategy. And so if every company has access to these tools, how do I think about using them as a middle market business to really push my strategy into the market, differentiate myself? Where can I start building with AI?
So you're talking about how to monetize AI. Is
Yes.
that really this question, Scott?
Yep.
Yeah.
How can I build defensible market positions with it? Which it's the same thing.
Yeah. I guess give me an example of a company, I guess a product. I mean, this really comes down to understanding what the business does and how the business can be differentiating. Now, you can take AI and automate some things internally, but does that give you a competitive marketplace?
Right.
It gives you a competitive workforce.
Yes.
Right? But does it really impact the customer? And so where we're looking at strategy is to develop and really look at how to build your business or make your business somewhat recession-proof or whatever else.
Right.
It's looking at what is the business that I'm in. We just started working with a large RV manufacturer. Now, you think today that RV manufacturers are probably on the decline.
Yeah, definitely a tougher market.
Yeah.
Interest rates are up.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Less disposable income. People
Right.
aren't, although you also have an aging population that's retiring
That wants to travel.
that wants to travel. And so they're kind of caught in the middle of that competitive edge.
Sure.
Now, they've had a competitive edge for many years because of their brand. So how are they going to improve their brand to increase more sales? Well, it's not about increasing their brand awareness.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the ease and ability. So if you could look at a company like this, and something we're talking with this organization about is how do you get clients? How do you attain clients?
Right.
How do you entertain a buying customer? Lead generation. We're seeing all kinds of this going on within the sales industry. Everything from AI-generated emails to actually AI bots that will call into organizations. They'll take massive data sets and analyze it and then pull out that information and give that back to you and say, okay, we know that these 50 companies are going through an AI transformation and they need help. And so therein lies, it's back to taking your sales department and taking away a lot of the stuff that they don't like to do, prospecting,
Right.
market identification, what have you, automating that, bringing some intelligence to that, and then really turning it back over to them for that outreach, saying, okay, we've got a list of 100 people that have all retired in the last 20 days, and they all have an inclination based upon AI's survey of their social media, which is going on. Everybody talks about, what do you put in social media stays on social media, right? And then, of course, 2 days later, you get a bunch of ads.
Exactly, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of that is machine learning, and
Sure.
a lot of that's the precursor to some of the AI that's out there right now. So what we're taking with that is understanding, okay, we can generate all these leads and just turn them over to an individual to then start walking through that.
Right.
And so there lies back to taking market intelligence and using that to your favor from an analytical perspective using AI.
Right. So it seems like there's some definite categories here. So one is operational improvements, like we talked about HR early on, and how can you improve your employee experience with the company, right, and build that connection.
Right.
Then there's the aspect of what you just mentioned of how can I make my salespeople, my sales organization more effective, giving them higher quality leads, giving leads that are we know these are active buyers out there because they're looking at things on social media. And then I think you touched on a little bit. Then I think it rolls to the customer experience, right? So that company, that RV company, how can I stay in front of my customer after they drive off the lot? And in 2 years, I can be in front of them saying, hey, here's a new model you might want to consider trading up to because it's got this, this, and this, which we didn't have before, of just building that kind of ongoing touch point with the customer that you don't have to have a salesperson calling or somebody picking up a phone or writing out an email, but it's just happening.
Right. Let me ask you, Scott, if Russell Crowe appeared in your inbox in a video talking about RVs and the latest models, and you're an RV
enthusiast, yeah.
Do you think you might?
Well, I'm going to change my actor to Daniel Craig. I'm not sure why I said Russell Crowe, but yeah, Daniel Craig. Yeah, I'd be more
007?
I'd be more inclined to listen to that, right? So yes, you're right.
And so a lot of that information is already out there on the World Wide Web. Taking AI and scanning the web
to
understand, okay, what are Scott's likes and dislikes, and then creating a persona or an attractive point, saying, okay, only specific for you and your interests, they'll hit on and make your, not only the prospecting more enjoyable. It's me, I personalized video from Daniel Craig or Russell Crowe or whoever would be pretty special.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm part of a cool club here.
Right.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Yeah, exactly.
He's talking to me.
Yeah, he's talking to me, and now now we're going to go out there and we're going to see all the new models, and it's going to and all along the way you've got this individual that's walking you through that and making your experience more enriched.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves and the companies, how they invest in it and what they do with it. One of the other things we touched on previously, and I think this is kind of one of the cool things, and I think you want to talk about this too, but where do you see AI going And in our previous conversation, you talked more about adaptive learning and how you see that evolving. And just found that to be fascinating. So I'd love you to talk about that with our listeners.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Well, the whole idea of upskilling and improving people's lives from an educational perspective, but also getting them the tools they need to be productive in our society. There was a study that was out recently by Pearson University, and they said that 17% of college graduates are prepared for the workforce.
Scary.
I don't know about you, but I finished paying off my youngest child's tuition bill a couple years ago, and I'm telling myself, is that in fact the case? And can I find a way to do this, get people more competent without spending a $250,000 on an undergraduate?
You just sent a bunch of parents with college-age kids into shock. Right?
I know, right? But I talked a lot about the gap in demand for technologists, just in my field alone. But it's the case across a lot of disciplines. Is people are going through traditional education, but they're not prepared, or they don't have the competencies or the skills required to be effective at a certain job or profession. And so, where we talk about this in most circles is, we'll send them back to school, or bring in a high-priced training program and train these people. L&D programs with every size organization across the world. That's one of the biggest things CEOs talk about is, what's my ROI on L&D? And there really isn't a hard quotient for that. And so, yes, I'm improving the people's lives by enriching them and educating them so that they're more satisfied with their job. Sure. But the reality is, in this world, people get the education, they'll go on to the next
do something. Right.
And a lot of times they've also talked about it that up until about 10 years ago, the back third of your career is what you spend upskilling. Now we're seeing the first third of your career is necessity for upskilling. Technology is changing so quickly that most of the time your skills you learned a year ago are outdated. Right? Same reason why I can't keep a security analyst to work for one company for more than 6 months. Because the new technology is somewhere else, and it's not at that organization. They're constantly refining your skills. So, what we look at upskilling, and we look at the tools that can be used for upskilling, and adaptive learning comes to the equation. Adaptive learning, and I don't know how much you've learned about adaptive learning or listeners, but really what adaptive learning is it takes bite-sized nuggets of a concept or an idea and giving it to you in kind of a spoon-fed instructional way, but also a way to analyze, do you know the information once you've had it through, right? You've been online for all these online classes. You can go on and you can study for months on end, and then all of a sudden you get to the end and you take the test and you pass or fail. Does that really prove that person can do the work? No. It can prove they can pass a test. I want people that actually can do the work. When you say you've got 7 years of development skills, how do you quantify what 7 years is? Based upon, again, we're seeing the state of Massachusetts outlawed 4-year degrees on employment applications, meaning that they cannot advertise a job that requires you to have a 4-year degree.
Interesting.
So the pendulum over the last 200 years was very much credential. It's now becoming competency. People, especially in the tech industry, is listen, we don't have time for a whole bunch of people to go through a 4-year degree. We need them now. And how do we get them now? So up until some of our development, adaptive learning was something where they take a curriculum, say they go to university and say, okay, professor, give me your semester's worth of curriculum on how to be a better human being. Okay? So they give you, sometimes will take 10 weeks to create curriculum. That'll then get uploaded into a platform, which will then spoon feed it to the learners. Great. Well, that's fantastic, but then you still have 10 weeks worth of time that you got to build the curriculum. So guess what we're doing? We're taking a very sophisticated AI engine that creates a persona that will interface with the individual to not only assess that individual's ability, but also predict their ability to do a job. in an unbiased way. I think most of the stuff that we talk about HR and AI, we have to make sure that HR is unbiased before we start to apply AI to it. Same thing for adaptive learning, is that we need to understand how the person learns. They could be a visual learner. They could be an audio learner. They could be a spatial learner. There's all different ways to learn. But this system will actually understand exactly how the person learns and what they need to learn. So, for example, you're applying to be a Java developer with us. Scott, you're good at math. You have decent personality skills. Problem-solving skills could be improved. And you know open source language, but you've never taken a single Java class. So where do we start? Most organizations will send you back to tech school to learn Java.
Right. Hey, we like you. You fit. We think you fit the culture. We're going to put you into this. Yeah.
Exactly. And so what we're identifying is not only how the person learns and what they need to learn, but then creating the curriculum in real time. So we take we're taking AI and we're basically training it to teach Scott how to develop in Java. Everything there is to know about Java is readily available. It all gets loaded up into our database, and then from there, it creates specific to your style, to your liking, and to exactly what you need to learn. You'll go through 15-minute modules. They're very gaming and kind of intensive interface, right?
Sure.
And then at that point, the AI will determine Scott knows or doesn't know or isn't confident. And if you're not as confident in the material, it'll change your direction in your learning path to go and take maybe a remedial 15-minute module. And then once they prove that you are confident, they go on to the next level. And everything from technology to we're working with some airline companies about how to train their flight attendants. They go through $25,000 to $30,000 for a 4-week period to get trained as a flight attendant. Okay? Well, history shows us, numbers show us that the average turnover of a flight attendant is 8 months, meaning they spend all this money, train these people to not only get them and lose them after 8 months on average. All that money is wasted on education because it's probably more likely educating the wrong person.
Sure.
A person that's not suited to do the service work. Or is not, maybe he's got afraid of heights, but that didn't flush out in the personality test. And they get in an airplane and they're like, wait a minute, I'm 5 miles above the earth and I'm afraid of heights.
Right. This isn't working out for me.
Yeah, I think I'm going to move on. So it's not only assessing a person's ability, but who they are as an individual and are they predicted to do well.
Sure.
But also showing up that saying, okay, instead of you sitting down for 4 weeks of training, we're going to basically take 4 or 5 weeks worth of training and condense it down into less than a week. And so not only we're looking at an opportunity to improve timeline of how people are educated and upskilled, but also in a much more on-demand fashion. And so that companies aren't spending hundreds of thousands of dollars training people for them to lose them.
Right. So it's a bit of a transfer, though, of saying, okay, there's all this training time, and that keeps happening, and people, use your flight attendant. They flip out every 8 months, and we got to start over. But you are going to put some investment and time in on the front end to build all that whole training platform and those training modules, right? And then continue to maintain that.
Yes.
So it probably shifts your expenditures to a degree, and also how you manage that program going forward.
The beauty of AI is that it can take what the work that we were doing to build that stuff and condense it into a very short period of time. I mean, like I said, it takes a professor about 10 weeks to build a semester's worth of curriculum. Okay, so if you need to build 9 semesters worth of curriculum, it's going to take you a long time.
Right.
We are actually building the curriculum in less than a day, and then dispatching it in real time, so it's all the latest and greatest information is available, and then being able to actually get the person. So instead of the person spending a semester at school, they can spend sometimes upwards of a couple days and be done, and proved out that they have the competency to do the job.
So you're reducing the cost of training significantly, and you're also reducing the time it takes to make someone viable to do a job.
Yes.
Wow. Sounds like a home run.
We think so. But I think the applications here are more than just
Right.
in your talent acquisition or upskilling. I think there's an opportunity here for organizations across the globe to look at it as a way to acquire talent. The amount of money people spend, if a person's salary is $100,000 a year, it costs upwards of about 3 times as much to acquire that individual. Meaning between interviewing and man hours, it takes about 40 to 50 hours of man hours to hire somebody.
Right.
Right? The evaluations, the testing, all that stuff that goes, interviewing and all that stuff that goes on. We're talking about taking people and putting them through this process where they create an entire ecosystem of qualified people that companies can step into and say, okay, not only do they don't have a 4-year degree, but they're competent in all these skills. They have all this experience now, and we can basically click the button and say, okay, let's spend 30 minutes with this individual to find out if they're, in fact, who they are and we like them.
So, Andrew, does it change too the cycle that it takes someone to go from, let's say, an entry-level employee doing entry-level kinds of things to, and then to progress to a management level, or call it a floor manager. They need to know, they need to develop experience here in merchandising. They need to develop experience here in scheduling employees. Can you can this adaptive learning accelerate that growth once you're in a job too, to go to the next level?
So most adaptive learning programs can't.
Okay.
What we do and what we're looking at is we have an assessment, the front end assessment that goes on. And
sure.
There's been assessments for age-old. I mean, we all took them, DISC or Wonderlic or all that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And, one would say how effective is it? And a lot of times it's about attention. It's even the people that are taking the test. Is it, okay, this is the 5th time you've asked me if the sky's blue. So I really need to, now I'm getting angry.
Right.
This is a waste of my time, right? It's going to skew the behavioral aspect of that test just a wee bit. So, the old adage, and some things I, talk about my hiring style. And I typically like to hire people for what they're going to do in 5 years from now, not for what they're doing right now. And that's just been kind of my style, especially with a lot of my leadership teams over the years, is, okay, they fit a certain aspect today, but really where I want them to be. The only way to truly understand, and we've did this, did some work with the large call centers. So large call centers, a lot of times if you're calling like T-Mobile, they'll have an outsourced call center. Sometimes it might be in India, sometimes it might be here in the United States. And so you're working with somebody. But that program that hires those contact workers, they take their top performers, the ones that have the most hits, the most sales, the most, completed calls with satisfaction, the best survey results, and they automatically push them into supervisory roles. And guess what happens? Person fails.
Same thing as you take your top salesperson and make them sales manager.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes it works. Most of the time it doesn't.
Right.
What we're talking about is prior to that person even coming on board, they're assessed not only for their current abilities, but predicting what their future abilities are, what their propensities are. And so before they even get hired, they've already been earmarked as somebody that would be a high probability of success if they went into management.
Right.
Or B, zero interest in management. And if you offer it to them, they're probably going to take it because it's more money, but then they're going to leave.
Right.
And so you've identified right off the get-go if that individual has the behavioral competencies to advance their career or in that some linear direction. And so once you've got that earmarked, then it's about, okay, what's the upskilling the person needs today? And then systematically, what are the things that this individual need to learn,
Right.
both utilizing our AI adaptive learning program or utilizing internally their management training program or their enrichment programs or whatever. hopefully by the time they get to that point, they've already wised up and given us their learning material so that we've automated it for them and brought it into a much better learning experience for those individuals. But it's also a career pathing opportunity here. It's saying, okay, but it also earmarks people. It says, okay, you know what? You're applying for a developer role. You have the propensity to be a great IT manager at some point, and you have interest in that, and then all the market is saying, well, the person may get through all of that and realize, okay, life changes.
Yeah.
And so at that point, that reassessment may need to be happening and say, okay, we really like Scott. We don't want to lose Scott. We know that his lifestyle or where he's at in his life is not going to make him a good manager candidate.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe let's pivot and find a different direction, reassess an individual and say, okay, they now have the propensity to be a sales manager.
Right.
Right? It happens. You see it quite a bit, people changing from a highly intellectual job to maybe a little bit more of a service-minded job, vice versa. What does that person need to know? And more importantly is, where does that person need to grow? And are they predicted to do well in that type of work? And what are the things they need to do to achieve that?
Mm-hmm. And the thing I love about that is it takes that development and how your organizational design out of intuition and what I think about someone, and it puts it in hard data. Like these are the things proven in the work they've been doing, in the assessments we've done. These are the things they need to do to really develop to that next level. How do we get them those? So,
yeah. It's funny. We'll take it even a step further than career pathing.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a little bit about wage ranges, right? And we've seen wages skyrocket, specifically also in IT.
In tech, yeah.
In tech, sure. Right? It's 1 minute you're qualified to make $50 an hour. The next minute you're making $75 or $80 an hour.
Right.
And what's changed? Not a whole lot.
And it goes up when the next recruiter calls and says, hey, we're looking for somebody, right?
So, and I think that's the biggest thing. They look at HR departments or procurement departments, and they look at these salary bands, and is it the salary band commensurate?
Right.
But then they come back to the job description. They ask, again, I want somebody that has a 4-year degree. Well, that may be wavered now, but I want somebody with 7 years of development experience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then what is 7 years of development experience worth X amount? In today's world, that's the way we say it. You check the box, you've been doing this for 7 years, you automatically get a grandfather.
You're worth this.
You're worth this, right?
Right, yeah.
That paradigm, eventually we'll throw that paradigm completely out the door and saying, listen, we've had 10,000 people go through this, we benchmarked them, here's where you stack rank. You have 7 years of life experience with development, but you really only grade out at five years of experience or intermediate level type of role. So therefore, companies can look at that and say, okay, well, you're actually not a 7-year person, you're a 5-year person.
Right.
And quantified that and numeritized that and said, okay, you stack rank, this is where you should be financially.
So it helps you avoid salary inflation because you're overpaying for the skills you're getting. Yeah. We got to switch gears a little bit because we could keep rolling on this. It feels like for a while. Yeah. But I want to hear more about your roundtable experience, and I know you're a newer member of the CEO roundtable. But if you could share, to this point, what's been the biggest decision your roundtables helped you with?
Well, Scott, I've been officially part of the roundtable since July.
Yeah, so it's a short time. So you may not have that big decision. Well, so let's change gears on that a little bit.
What attracted me to the roundtable?
How have you found it so far? Because as a new member, that's vital because we have new members coming in all the time. So,
when I first and I say this, I came back to the Twin Cities a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been out running around the globe and putting development centers in Latin America or Asia or wherever. And so I called Minnesota home from the standpoint that I got my mail here. And it was my residency, obviously, Minnesota state taxes. But I remember many times it'd be 200, 300 days outside of Minnesota, traveling around and when I was right back here. So my local network was there, but it wasn't where it needed to be.
Right.
And so if I'm back here headquartered for two of the companies are headquartered here in Minnesota, I said, well, I need to get better roots here. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things I was looking at, a couple different, different associations, a couple that cost a significant amount of money and mandatory. You had to get a coach and all these things. And I was like, well, and then you got a guy who's pretty egotistical. He's been doing this for 25 years. Do I really need help?
Right.
And what I found was I need help getting the stuff out of my head that I can't talk to anybody else about.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else. I go home and my beautiful wife asks me, how was your day today, honey? And I could tell her, yes, it was good, bad, indifferent, whatever, but could I really get into the nitty-gritty of the business issue that I was dealing with that day and why I was a little sour?
Right.
Or I've got a group of 9 other people that I can share that with. And that to me has been so far probably the biggest eye-opener is, yes, there's a lot of great connections. And that's one of the reasons why what attracted me to this type of opportunity is that you've got companies that have been through this before. Who needs a tax guy?
Right.
Well, I've got a lot of connections and a lot of experience in my industry, but there's still things that are common through all the businesses that happen.
Right.
And so we've been doing a little bit of restructuring here at Ambient. And so it's one of the things I posed as my number 4 with the group. And some of it is we're going to get to that conversation, I think, in our upcoming retreat.
Okay.
A little bit about organizational design and do we have the right people in the right seats? And I'm always looking at teams that way. And
Sure.
sometimes I don't. And who would be better or what would be a better fit here?
Well, you've only been to a few meetings at this point, right? But isn't it interesting, and I hear this in your comments, that everybody in your roundtable is different business, right? Different than Ambient, but the common themes of the things you're dealing with, if you're growing a business, you're all touching them, right?
Yeah.
And there's experience in that roundtable that someone that's probably dealt with something that you're facing, right? That you can learn from their experience or from what they went through.
Yeah, I also, too, we've had a couple of sessions where we've asked the question and nobody had the answer to it.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so we sat around and we just kind of debated a little bit.
Right.
And came up with an answer. We've helped with wordsmithing at an organization that was doing a little bit of right-sizing. And how do you communicate that? Well,
Sure.
one of the things I'm probably not proud about is I've had to go through lots of those layoffs over the years across the world. And how do you communicate effectively in those types of situations? So the good and the bad.
Well, and those kinds of messages are so important because there's so much how you say what is going to happen to give the right impression to the organization and the people that you care about that this is what we're doing and we're going to be okay and we believe in you.
Yeah. And it's the other thing I found too is that people were very much approachable and open.
Yeah.
And so I shared some personal things that had gone on the last year of my life that were pretty significant. But I felt safe in that environment, and how that impacts how I interface with my business, and some encouragement to maybe look at some different ways of doing things. So.
Well, it sounds like you've got a great roundtable, and
I do.
Bonding well.
Yeah, no, it's been a good group of people so far, and we could probably use 2 more. I think we're at 10. So
okay. So now I'm going to ask you 3 questions that I ask all my guests, and it just gives the audience a little deeper look into who you are, and they're fun questions. So your favorite movie is the first one.
I'd have to say Braveheart or Gladiator.
All right, a Russell Crowe movie.
It depends on the day.
Right.
I mean, I've got some. I remember watching Animal House and Dazed and Confused every day after college classes. And I could tell you the line for everything in Reservoir Dogs. But, but it's one of those movies you can, if it comes on halfway through and you turn on the TV and you see it,
You're going to watch it, right?
You're going to watch it, yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, I think I will go with Braveheart for that.
All right,
I'll
good.
give you Russell Crowe. And,
So what are you reading now?
what am I reading now? I am reading Blue Ocean.
Okay.
Yep. And that is it's a book about markets and how to penetrate markets. And it's a good for me right now. It's a bit of a refresher because I've been out of the go-to-market strategy for the last 3 or 4 years, and now I've got 2 companies that we're looking to do some investing in and some serious funding.
Well, in the AI space this is pure blue ocean, right? That we're in right now. So there's a lot of things that are going to happen. So it's probably a good book to fuel your thinking around where you take ambient. Bucket list concert.
Do they have to still be alive?
No, they do not.
It would have to be the Beatles.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that would be I like small venues.
sure.
I'm not I've gone to some of the bigger concerts. I'm a bit of a outlaw country kick right now. But I've been all over the board. I've also, I think the other one, it's the Beatles, but if they're still alive, I think it would be Andrea Bocelli in Milan. In
Oh,
one of the
wow.
old Colosseums. I think that would be,
epic.
yeah, I think it would be.
Well, Andrew, this has been amazing. So thank you for being part of this. And this AI conversation is going to continue on and on. And so thank you for informing us a little bit more about how we can think about this as strategy for our business.
Very good. Thank you, Scott, for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the CEO to CEO podcast, produced by Dave Swerdlick and the incredible team at Uptown Podcast Studios. You can find them at uptownpodcast.com. Be certain to subscribe so you don't miss an episode with more CEO wisdom highlighting experience and insights from the trenches. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review and share with others. If you are a Minnesota-based business leader who would like to learn more about being part of a peer advisory roundtable, check us out at ceo-roundtable.org.